Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very senior professional from the world of PR and branding from the UK, Laura Perkes. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Laura is the founder of PR with Perkes. She's a PR strategist and a brand storyteller. So, Laura, let's talk public relations and branding today. First, tell me what you do at PR with Perkes.
That's a very good question because actually recently I have decided to diversify my skill set.
Oh, wonderful.
Essentially, ever since I set up my own business in 2013, I've very much been operating like a PR agency would. So we work with clients on a monthly retainer, we create a PR strategy for them, and then we implement and do kind of like done for you PR services. But what I've noticed since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, my network of entrepreneurs and small business owners grew. And what I found, and again, because I am also this person, I can totally relate. Public relations often feels like it's unachievable. It feels like it's going to be a heavy investment from a financial perspective, from a time perspective, a headspace perspective. And I realized a few months ago that the reason I set up the business in the first place was to bridge that gap for startup businesses who would really excel from using public relations, but just couldn't justify the price tag of an agency. And I just sat here and I thought, how can I reach these people? So I'm in the process of writing a book, but that's not going to be published. Thank you. It won't be published until November. And I thought, I need to do something now. I've got all these years of experience. You know, I've been working in the industry since I was 21 years old. I won't divulge how old I am.
Absolutely, no need.
It's been quite a long time, and I thought, how can I take my expertise and teach entrepreneurs and small businesses how to do their own PR, but at an affordable rate? So I've literally just 2 weeks ago launched a new 3-month program, and it's a space really for me to hold these entrepreneurs and small business owners, because as we know, when we do anything new, imposter syndrome kicks in, fear comes up, judgment. So actually it's for me to make sure that they are taking action, to hold them accountable, to motivate them and to support them, because we're all capable of pitching ideas to journalists. And, you know, the world has changed. You know, social media has really opened the world up to journalists. So it's almost, how can I best use my expertise to help people who aren't yet ready to invest in an agency?
Fantastic. And have you decided on the name of your book?
Yes, I haven't released it anywhere yet.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll schedule another call sometime about your book. But good luck with your book. I always have a lot of respect for authors. So Laura, tell me, let's start by asking you a basic question. How is PR different from networking?
Actually, do you know, I was about to say it's so different, but actually there are a lot of similarities. Because when we're networking, we are either in a room physically with other business owners, or it's online, and we're all there to build relationships. We're all there to connect with one another, maybe to work together, refer business. Public relations isn't actually too dissimilar. But rather than being in a room or on a Zoom call with your potential kind of ideal clients and customers, it's hosted on a different platform, whether that's radio, TV, podcasts now, print media. And all you're doing is sharing your message. You are sharing your tips and your expertise to an audience that really needs to hear from you.
Well said.
So it's less personal, And but the scope and the magnitude to make impact on a much larger scale is more readily available when you start to kind of open yourself up to public relations.
Fantastic. And you have you're just telling me that you've decided to pivot and support a lot of small entrepreneurs or startup entrepreneurs. My question to you is, and let's use this as a PR 101 for startup entrepreneurs. What are some of the common mistakes or PR mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs tend to make?
These are really great questions. So often I find it difficult to choose one or two. But I would say one of the biggest mistakes is not understanding the nuances of how journalists work.
Okay.
Because, years ago, you'd pick up the phone and you'd have a conversation with them. Now they very rarely answer the phone. So many journalists in the UK are now working from home still since the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it's very much email communication. Now, every journalist I speak to tells me they receive around 100 to 200 email pitches per day.
Wow.
Exactly. So it's a lot, which means you then need to practice how to stand out in that inbox. Because, if I was to receive 200 emails a day on top of the tasks I have to complete to fulfill my role, it'd get really overwhelming. You'd probably just end up deleting everything without looking at it. So for me, it's almost really think about what is it that you want to get across and how is that going to impact their reader, their viewer, or their listener.
Amazing.
Because everything to do with PR is all about your ideal customer and client. And these media outlets have built a solid reputation. They've built a very loyal following over years, decades sometimes. So it's easier to tap into somebody else's audience and entice them over to join your audience than from you to start from scratch. So it's very much leaving your head as a business owner and thinking about what is it that my ideal customers and clients need from me. The journalist then is just the middleman.
Very good. Wonderful. And, one of the questions that a lot of startup entrepreneurs, a lot of company management grapple with is, should I start my PR when there's a crisis, or should I keep doing it because there's a cost involved in it?
Absolutely.
What is your thought?
I would say often if you're in like hiring a PR agency at a time of crisis, you've left it too late.
Okay.
Because public relations is all about building and maintaining your reputation. And things happen. It doesn't always happen intentionally, but you can't then just run away and hide and hope that it disappears without causing any damage. That's when you need people to step in and just oversee communication, make sure that positive messages are being put out, make sure that whatever the crisis is dealt with smoothly and efficiently so that it doesn't impact your business going forward. So obviously I'm biased, but I would say that however big you are, whether you're a startup, a solopreneur, or a CEO, public relations is something that you should have as part of your communication strategy that runs alongside advertising, that runs alongside marketing and social media, because individually they're very powerful modalities, but together, wow, all of a sudden you are pushing out your message to your audience, however they're consuming content. So when a crisis hits, you've already got a team involved. They understand the nuances of the business. They understand how your target customers respond, the language, the personality of the brand. It just makes it an easier process.
Very interesting. And yet, I remember when I was in marketing in large corporations, and I'm talking of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s also, PR was really getting all the journalists together, get onto a stage, talk about what you're doing, present something, have a drink with all of them, and hope they give you a good write-up. My question to you, Laura, is how has social media started to change the entire uh, concept of public relations?
On the whole, I would say it has enhanced the whole experience, because public relations is all about building relationships.
Correct.
And social media is all about being social. So it's giving business owners, again, whatever size, access to journalists, to connect with them, to engage in their content, to start forming that relationship, so that when it comes to sending them an email pitch, they already know who you are.
Okay.
They recognize the name, they recognize the brand name. It's then more of a warm conversation than something that's completely cold. Again, some journalists do get frustrated with business owners crossing the boundaries and maybe contacting them out of hours or pitching ideas in their direct messages. But social media has given us more access to journalists who, 10 years ago, you could only access if you had a PR agency. So I do believe that social media has changed the landscape for the better if you're using it properly and kind of not overstepping boundaries and forgetting that it's social media, not I'm going to pitch you in DMs.
Great response. So one more question on PR, and then I'll move to your brand storyteller avatar. Again, I'm going back many years, and when we used to handle PR, we were always taught that when it is good news, release it on a Monday. When it's a bad news, release it on a Friday, because the press doesn't really care too much on a weekend. What are your thoughts?
This makes me giggle, because I think kind of back in the day, that worked really well. But now newsrooms operate 24/7, and they'll have weekend teams covering a Saturday and a Sunday. If a news story was to break on a Friday afternoon, they would make sure that story is covered. So I love the premise, and it did used to work probably 15 years ago, but now not so much, because everything's available to us 24/7.
Very good. And sorry, one more question I thought I'll ask you is that, reputations are built very slowly but destroyed very quickly. What are some of the pointers that a corporate leader should keep in mind from a PR perspective to make sure that their corporate image and their individual image is protected?
I think, as I said earlier, it's kind of understanding how journalists work, because CEOs of bigger corporate organizations want to send a press release out for everything. They don't necessarily understand the process. They don't understand what's newsworthy. For them, they just want to be seen in the press. So it's almost understand how the media landscape works, or actually trust your public relations team that they are putting out what they need to. Now, if there's something coming up, maybe it's shares have taken a hit or something slightly negative, let the PR team know in advance, because the team can then work on switching up the narrative of that story so that the negative is hidden within more positive news. So that can take time. It's not always a 2-hour or a 24-hour job, but if the PR team has enough time to work on it, speak to their journalists. Sometimes stories will get leaked to the press. So then it's about understanding who the PR team needs to speak to and the kind of damage limitation that may need to occur to stop a big story from being leaked without the company having any control over it.
Fascinating. So let me now move, Laura, to your second specialism, which is you as a brand storyteller. My first question to you is, what goes into crafting a story for a strong personal brand or a corporate brand?
This is what I really love. I love the personal brand aspect. And again, this is something I see big corporations glossing over. It's almost like now they're so big, the focus is on the products, or it's on their service, or it's on their people. But actually, as human beings, we want to know, what's your background? What's your startup journey? How have you ridden the highs and lows of success? So for me, when it comes to storytelling, it's almost like this podcast interview with you and I. It's delving into, what did you do to get to where you are today?
Correct.
And it's, I guess, letting down the walls and knowing that people are going to relate to you regardless of the successes, regardless of the pitfalls. And I think just as human beings, we're afraid to talk about times that we've maybe failed, or times where we've made mistakes. Because growing up as children, you're rewarded for being good and potentially told off or punished for being naughty. And I think we take this into our adult life, and we take it into the businesses that we run. So all of a sudden, being vulnerable is scary, and it's not a place we're comfortable with. Actually, it's in those moments of vulnerability where we allow people to connect with us on a deeper level. And that's when we maybe earn more respect, we build a stronger reputation. Our brand is looked at differently in our consumers' eyes. So for me, the storytelling is allowing people in.
Well said. Well said. And at what stage of one's life or career should one start thinking that it's time to build my personal brand?
That is interesting. I would say with anybody now starting a new business, to build your personal brand first.
Okay.
And I see it a lot in the online space. As solo business owners, we're used to posting on social media. We're used to putting our face out there and our name out there. And then when we grow and we transition into a bigger business, the brand then builds around us. I think for the big brands that we're used to hearing, like Nike or Rolex, Jaguar, we're used to the brand name, but we have no idea about the business journey, where it started, who's actually at the helm, who's running the ship. And one brand that I absolutely love following is a fitness brand called Gymshark. And essentially this young lad set up this business that has now just grown exponentially and have used social media for good. They've built a really loyal following and a solid tribe. But Ben Francis, who created the brand, has been very honest at documenting how he felt when he was told by his board of directors that he couldn't be the CEO.
Okay.
And that honesty makes you think differently about business. Because if you are in your late teens or early 20s, you don't have the life experience of CEOs who are traditionally older and wiser, and they've been through the knockbacks and the pitfalls. So actually having somebody with more expertise in your business is going to help your business grow and be sustainable. But I guess at a 20-year-old, you don't want to hear, you're not quite right for this position. Correct. I think he has now taken over as the CEO, but again, he's got more life experience, he's got more business experience, and now it makes sense. So again, I think he does a lot of stuff on YouTube. He's on podcasts a lot. I see a lot of his content on LinkedIn. He's just showing up in the spaces where his kind of ideal customers and clients are hanging out.
Very interesting. So I have time for two more questions. My next question on personal branding is that there is a general belief among a lot of people that my work should speak for itself. Why should I speak about my work? And there is a converse side that if you don't speak about your work, nobody else will. So what are your thoughts?
I think there is truth in both, because I'll admit now, I don't really share client testimonials. I don't really shout about the PR success stories that we work with, because for me, I feel like the amount of time I've spent in the industry and how long I've been running my own business speaks for itself. However, I do understand that people need to build trust.
Correct.
And public relations, for example, there are now so many PR agencies you can work with. There are so many freelancers supporting smaller brands. You do have to stand out, and you have to do that by not only sharing your story and you being visible, but also showing the results that you deliver, the transformation you provide for your customers and clients. So I can totally relate to that phrase.
Okay.
And again, it's actually a sales coach that I've worked with before is very good at reframing things. So actually, you're not shouting about yourself. You are, by not talking about what you do, you're stopping people from being able to work with you.
Fascinating. And my last question to you, Laura, and this is for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. Based on your incredible journey and all your successes, both on the PR with Perkes and as a brand storyteller, what would you say are 3 lessons you would want our viewers and listeners to take away from our conversation?
Okay, so lesson number 1 is to just keep going. Because starting a conversation with a journalist is completely different to any other conversations we have as human beings.
Correct.
Normally, if you send an email, you will get a response fairly quickly, or maybe within 24 or 48 hours. You can be sending out emails to journalists and you never hear back. This is not an opportunity for you to think, oh no, it's me, I'm not good enough, my idea was rubbish. It's understanding again how journalists work. They've got 200 emails in their inbox, and they've got 5 articles to write, and the deadline is in an hour. So it's just knowing to keep going. So that's probably the first tip. The second tip is make your email pitches bespoke to that journalist. So this will require more research and more work, but journalists know when you're sending out a generic email to an entire list of journalists. So if all you do is use their name, make sure you spell it correctly.
Absolutely. That's very good.
And also, by using social media, you can then bring some social elements into your email, which shows the journalist that you've gone above and beyond to find out something about them.
Okay.
And it does feel a little bit like we're playing a game, but even if that journalist doesn't accept that particular pitch, you will stand out for them.
Well said.
And then the third tip, if your first idea doesn't get picked up, tweak it slightly and try again. Okay. Have a look at what similar content they've written recently. It may be that an article has recently been published and they're just simply not going to run it again for another 3 to 6 months. It may be that a world pandemic has happened and everything's changed. Or it may just be that they have filed it for another time, but they just haven't had the time to reply to you to let you know. So you do have to be very nimble when you work in PR. Build a thick skin and just trust that the right pitch will land with the right journalist at the right time.
Fantastic. What an amazing conversation. On that note, Laura, thank you so much for speaking to me. And my biggest learning today is understand the way journalists work. And, thank you for talking to me about the 3 tips, which are keep going, bespoke mail, bespoke conversations must be sent to the journalists. And if it doesn't work, try again.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I think there are some other interesting things that you spoke about. One is, and that's very important, keep the PR team of your company or your business involved. It's almost like a lawyer. Tell them the truth. Don't hide anything from your PR team. So thank you again for speaking to me about PR with Perkes and about the way you are pivoting your own business and wanting to start supporting a lot of startup entrepreneurs. And finally, good luck with your book. Thank you for speaking to me.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.